Hello students, today we will discuss about the magnetic properties of a bulk nanostructured material, uh, particularly nanostructured ferromagnetism. So how do we get a net magnetic moment, or what do you mean by net magnetic moment of a material? It is a measure of strength of magnetism in a material. So the transition metals have unfilled inner energy levels, or you can say those electrons in the inner energy levels will have their spin unpaired because they are unfilled. They are not paired. So this contribute to the magnetic moment of the material. So if you consider iron which has 26 as atomic numbers, that means 26 electrons are present. So it will be the electronic configuration of the iron will be the first two electron will be filled in the 1s orbital, and the second two the other two electrons in the 2s orbital, the next two electrons in 2px, 2py, 2pz, and two of them in 3s, and 3px, 3py, 3pz, and finally you have 4s, two electrons. Okay, so that will count up to, so you have 4, 4 plus 6, 10, 12, 18, and 20, and remaining 6 electrons are arranged in the 3D subshells. So here you can see initially all the 5 3D consists of 5 quantum state. So all the 5 subshells. So all the 5 subshells are initially singly occupied, and then the remaining 1 electron to complete 26 electron will be filled in the one particular subshell. So you can see there are 4 number of electrons which are unpaired, or their spins are unpaired. So this will contribute to the higher magnetic moment for the material. So you will get strong magnetic moment. So inside of an atom, here you can see the nucleus, and the atoms are arranged according to the Bohr model. The electrons are arranged, 2 occupying 1s orbital, 2 occupying 2s orbital, 6 occupying the 2p orbital, then 3s orbital, 2, then 3p orbital, and 4. Okay, so when crystals, so there are different ways in which this net magnetic moment of an atom, a material consists of a number of atoms, so each atom will be having their own moment, magnetic moment. So they can be aligned in a different possibilities. One of them is that they are arranged in a random order, which will contributes to a net magnetic moment of 0. So such kind of material is called paramagnetic material. And in some other materials, those magnetic moments due to each atom align in a particular direction, so constituting a resultant magnetic moment. Such kind of materials are called ferromagnetic material. In some other case, there are two kinds of magnetic moment present, and one type is arranged in one direction, and another type is arranged in the next direction. So here also you can get a net magnetic moment. And the last one is antiferromagnetic material, which means the moments are arranged in oppositely, so the net magnetic moment will be 0. So why do some of the materials have their spins arranged and some others do not? So it all depends upon what is the interaction energy between the atoms or ions. So if the interaction energy is greater than thermal energy, then you can see that the nearest neighbors are aligned. So the interaction is of two types. One is called exchange interaction, other is called dipole-dipole interaction. So in exchange interaction, there is a difference in Coulomb energy between two electrons with spin that are parallel and antiparallel. So there are two possibilities for a quantum state. The electrons can be in the parallel way, and or it could be in the antiparallel way. So how much is the energy difference between these two states, that will contribute to the Coulomb energy, and this happens between the nearest neighbor. So it is a nearest neighbor interaction, and it is the stronger interaction among the two interactions. In the case of dipole-dipole interaction, it occurs in lattice of magnetic ions. So exchange interaction is the predominant or dominant role in aligning the nearest neighbors. Now, another feature found in the ferromagnet is that if you measure the magnetic moment of a given material, it will be always less than the moment the material would have if every atomic moment were aligned in the same direction. So, if you consider all the atoms are arranged in the same direction, we might have a particular magnetic moment, which say capital M. But then what is obtained will be always less than by adding all the moments of the atoms in the material. So why is that happening? The answer is there is existence of domains, so which leads to a decreased resultant magnetic moment. So what do you mean by domains? Domains means the in some region the direction magnetic moment of atoms are aligned, and in some other region it is in another direction. So you could have one domain, single domain, or two domain, four domains, or many number of domains possible. So what happens when such a material is applied to a DC magnetic field? So whenever a DC magnetic field in this direction as shown is applied, so what will happen? Any alignment which is in the direction of the applied magnetic field will try to grow. Okay, so that is what is happening. So there is a movement of domain wall. This occurs in a very weak magnetic field. So if we are applying a strong magnetic field, then the magnetic directions which are not in the direction of applied field, that will suddenly soon starting to rotate. So this dominates in the stronger applied magnetic field. So if you consider a material, if you apply a magnetic field, you can see the magnetization slowly increase, almost like linearly, and at one point the magnetization do not increase as such. So such point is called saturation magnetization. And if you try to decrease the magnetic field now, it will not be a reversible process. It will take a different path. The saturation magnetization will be prolonged for a given time. And after that, once the magnetic moment, applied field is zero, you can still find a certain amount of magnetic moment, which is called remnant magnetization. And then we may apply the magnetic field in such a way that remnant magnetization comes to zero. Okay, so it is called coercive field, which is the field applied to make the remnant magnetization zero. So there are different types of ferromagnets, as you know, soft magnet and permanent magnet. Soft magnets are usually used in transformers and rotating machinery. So here the magnetization curve will be very narrow, so there will be not much loss of efficiency, and rise in temperature can be expected due to the frictional heating from the domains. So the minimum enclosed area will be small or zero coercive field. While in the case of hard magnets, it is mainly used for permanent magnets. It has high field systems and large coercive fields, and it has a wider hysteresis loop. So soft magnetic field means it doesn't have that much magnetization, while in the case of hard magnetized, it would have a much curve like this. Now, what is the role of nanostructuring on these kind of magnetic materials or bulk nanostructure material? The essence is that you can tune the magnetization curve by adjusting the size or adjusting the participating nanoparticles. So, if for example, in a 10 nanometer iron grains, which is in amorphous alloy ribbon, synthesized using roller method and is annealed for 1 hour in inert gas, and the magnetization obtained is of the order of 1.24 Tesla. Remnant magnetization is 0.67 Tesla, and coercive field is 0.53 ampere per meter. Okay. So what is your inference? Such a material is soft magnet because the remnant magnetization is zero or coercive field is zero, which means only a small magnetic field need to be applied to make the remnant magnetization zero. So such a kind of magnets are soft magnet. You could also design materials which doesn't have any hysteresis curve at all. It is just a linear plot. So that is possible if you take nanoscale amorphous alloy powders of iron, nickel, cobalt having a grain size of 10 to 15 nanometer. So here you can see it is almost like a S-shaped curve without any hysteresis. That is a speciality of nanostructured material. So it can also be mentioned as a super paramagnetic or single domain material. Now coming over to our main topic, that is giant and colossal magnetoresistance. So initially magnetoresistance was noticed in metals. So what do you mean by magnetoresistance? Whenever we apply a DC constant magnetic field, we can experience a change in resistance of the material. So that is what you meant by magnetoresistance, change in a resistance due to the presence of a magnetic field. So this effect will become more evident when the magnetic field is strong enough to curve the electron trajectory within a length equal to its mean free path. So in the case of metals, a resistance means in the flow of the electron, if some defects happens and then if the electron is retarded, which means there is a resistance felt by the electron. In the presence of magnetic resistance or magnetic field, if it is strong enough, electron trajectory within the length uh, will only be curved, and it will be equal to its mean free path. And for copper, this would happen at about 4 Kelvin, very low temperature, and 10 Tesla, very high temperature. So that is a disadvantage of using metals. So metals hasn't gained any research interest till 1988. So what is the reason for that? The metals require very high magnetic field and very low temperature to show the magnetoresistance effect. So in 1988, the situation changed. It was constructed alternate layers of ferromagnetic and non-magnetic materials of nanometer thickness, for which the Albert Fert and Peter Grunberg received Nobel Prizes in 2007. So there is a dependence of electron scattering on the orientation of the electron spin with respect to the direction of magnetization. For example, let us consider a material having a spin up is facing this particular material. So what will happen? The alignment of the electron as well as the alignment of the film are the same. So this electron will not undergo any scattering effect and it will be moving on to the next layer. So there also it doesn't undergo any scattering, and you will get a better you'll get a better movement of electron, better flow of electron. But in the case of a downspin electron, which doesn't have matching with the applied field, what happens? It will be scattered in the first film, and on reaching on to the second film, it will again be scattered. So which means you'll get two channels through which the electrons can be conducted or permitted based on the spin. And in this case, there are alternate layers of ferromagnetic materials and non-magnetic material, but in this case the alignment of magnetization is just opposite to each other. So which means if it is upspin or downspin, both the electrons will feel a scattering. Why? If the upspin electron enters this region, the alignment is the same, so no scattering occurs. And once it reaches onto the interface between non-magnetic and ferromagnetic material, what will happen? There is a opposite nature for the magnetic moment, and hence it will experience a scattering. So you have to keep in mind that if the magnetic moments of the alternate layers are oppositely arranged, then whether it be upspin or downspin, both the electrons will feel the same amount of resistance. So that is shown here. In the anti-parallel magnetization of the alternate layers, the resistance was huge, but once magnetic field is applied, this anti-parallel will become parallel magnetization, and in the process resistance will decrease. So that is quantified by a factor called GMR, which is equal to resistance when it is anti-parallel minus resistance when it is parallel divided by resistance when it is parallel. What is parallel? The layers are parallel. Okay, so the application of DC magnetic field forces the magnetization of all the layers to flip in the direction of the field. So as we just mentioned, for a downspin, it will experience reflection only at the next layer, while in the case of upspin, it is experiencing scattering at the first layer itself, but it is safely moved through across the second non-magnetic and magnetic layers. So in this case, we can see that whether it be downspin or upspin, the resistance felt by both are the same. If you apply a magnetic field, now the magnetic field will get arranged. So if a downspin atom comes up here, it is in opposite direction, so the scattering will happen. Then it will reaching on to the next layer, which is a non-magnetic layer, and then it is passing through to the next ferromagnetic layer. So the alignment is again opposite to the downspin electron, so it will be scattered more. While in the case of upspin electron, you can see the alignment are the same for the first layer and the third layers, and hence the electron will be smoothly flowing across. So then what will be the resistance? So the resistance is shown here. So if it is upspin, it will not have any resistance. If it is in a downspin, it has infinite resistance. So always the electron will choose a path which has less resistance. So this possibility will be more. So because the two spin channels are parallel, the lower resistance channel determines the resistance of the material. So there are different kinds of giant magnetoresistant material. One is formed out of alternate layers of non-magnetic and magnetic ferromagnetic material, which is just mentioned earlier. While in the case of another example is randomly oriented single domain paramagnetic cobalt nanoparticles in a non-magnetic copper matrix. So then also you can experience the giant magnetoresistance effect. And the third category is the hybrid system, where the cobalt nanoparticle in a silver matrix is sandwiched between the nickel ferrite magnetic layers with alternate magnetization. So it is same as the alternate layer structures of the first category. Only thing is that in the non-magnetic region, you have a embedding of nanoparticles. Okay, so if you consider a substrate in which the nanoparticles are embedded, then they have a different random directions, and hence what you get will be, but what you get is a isotropic magnetoresistance at very high field and smaller magnetic nanoparticle. Now what is the main application of GMR? GMR is actually used as a field sensor to read the data in the hard disk drives. It can also act as a biosensor or micro electromechanical systems and magnetoresistive random access memory. Now coming out to the last topic, that is colossal magnetoresistance. From the name itself, it is suggesting that there is a huge change in resistance. So how do we get a larger magnetoresistance effects than the layered material? So in this case, you can see it is also called a perovskite structure, where lanthanum, calcium or strontium, any of them, will be occupying the corners, while the manganese is at the center and oxygen is occupying the center of the faces. So here you can see that lanthanum manganese oxide, if some of the lanthanum is replaced by calcium, strontium, barium, lead or cadmium, which are +2 valency, so some of the manganese 3+ will become manganese 4+ to neutralize the compound. So what will happen? The lanthanum will consist of 0.67%, calcium 0.33 and manganese and oxygen. Okay, where you have a presence of mixed valence state of manganese and manganese. So here you can see initially whatever be the resistance, a high increase or high degrees in resistance is felt when you go for colossal magnetoresistance. So here also you can see as the temperature reaches up to 250, which means in the room temperature, resistivity is high for at room temperature value. So there is a 1000-fold change in resistance with magnetic field. There is a temperature dependence of the resistivity. So the application is that you can make use of it in the magnetic recording head, sensing elements in magnetometers, and so on. So in our next class, we'll discuss more about spintronics. So thank you.